Hello and welcome to another episode of The Bastard Review. This time around I'm looking at ECW's As Good As It Gets. This event took place on September 20th, 1997 in the ECW Arena in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. We start off the night with the FBI, Little Guido and Tracy Smothers taking on Axel Rotten and Balls Mahoney. This opening match was a filler match and nothing more. I like how the FBI got in some heelish tactic, but there really wasn't anything special or impressive going on in this match. After the match, there's some interesting stuff going on with Axel, Balls, and the referees, but this is a pretty average and uninspired way to open up the show. I'm going to give this a 5 out of 10. After that, Joey Styles is in the ring, and he brings down Jason, much to Joey's dismay. Jason says that he's found a new hot commodity, and he invites this person down to the ring, who turns out to be none other than Justin Credible. Yeah, kind of anticlimactic, but he makes up for it in his next match, when he goes up against Jerry Lynn. This was Jerry's first match as well for ECW, and they were given a decent amount of time to wow the crowd. They pulled off some really good moves, including Justin giving Jerry a spinning powerbomb and a perfect Hurricanrana by Jerry on Justin. It felt like there was some stuff missing from this match, but rivalries have to start somewhere, and this is where it started for the two of them. I'm going to give this a 6 out of 10. After that, we have Lance Storm taking on Chris Candido. Now, this was before they had started their notable rivalry in ECW. I believe this is the first match they've ever fought against each other as well. This was a wrestling clinic, a mat-based, back and forth, beautiful piece of work. Some highlights are a standing Frankensteiner from Lance, and then Chris does his signature move, a blonde bombshell, which is a power bomb from the top rope. It was beautiful. Also during the match, Chris dives from the top rope onto Lance in the first row. That was a sick bump. I would say the one flaw is that there's really no story here. Chris does a decent job of upsetting the crowd, but he doesn't do anything that really draws their ire, and there's no story between the two wrestlers. But it's still a worthwhile match. I'm going to give this a 7 out of 10. Just in case you missed it the other two times, this next match is Bam Bam Bigelow taking on Spike Dudley. This had a little more excitement going for it because this was the rubber match between the two of them. Spike had pulled the fluke win the first match they had, and then Bam Bam beat him at Hardcore Heaven. So I was kind of interested to see who would come out of this victorious. But honestly, at the end of the day, you're looking for Bam Bam to throw Spike into the crowd. And he did. And thankfully the crowd caught Spike and surfed him like they should have in Florida. In fact, Bam Bam brings it up before the match, which I find very amusing. Unfortunately, this really isn't a very exciting match. It's very short, and honestly, it's one-sided. I'm going to give this a 5 out of 10. After that, we have Shane Douglas defending his ECW World Heavyweight title against a man Rick Rude has spent 3 months training, and that man is Phil LaFon. Yeah, I pretty much had that reaction as well. Phil spent a little bit of time in WWF during '97 with his tag team partner, Doug Furnas. They seem to have had a lot of matches with Owen Hart and the British Bulldog, but they never really made an impact in the WWF, and soon enough they found their way to ECW. This match was okay. It really didn't feel like a title match. I'm just not buying LaFon as a contender. There's some interesting things that happened during the match, but this feels more like an introduction to Doug and Phil than it does a title match. I'm going to give this a 5 out of 10. This next segment is kind of convoluted, so bear with me. The Pitbulls come down with Lance Wright in a wheelchair and cut a promo basically calling out Taz. Taz comes down and faces Pitbull number 2, but I don't know if this is really a match because the bell never rings and there's never a referee in the ring. But it doesn't matter because Taz lays out Pitbull number 2 and then gets out of the ring and attacks Lance Wright. He puts him through a table and then attacks a fan in the first row. A security guard accosts Taz and tells him that he can't attack fans no matter how much he wants to. Taz responds by putting the guard in a Fujiwara armbar. Some of the ECW wrestlers come down, get Taz into a corner, and then Sabu gets into the ring and starts slapping Taz around. Finally, they manage to get Taz out of the ring, and I guess that sets up for the next match, which is Sabu versus the Sandman. Phew, told you it was convoluted. The match was a pretty by-the-numbers brawl. Both men beat each other up, and the ending was kind of weird. Sandman takes a Singapore cane and hits it across Sabu's face, and then Sabu, shoots whatever that flash paper fire stuff is into Sandman's face, and then a bunch of people come out, EMTs and all that, and take Sandman into the back. Just a really weird way to end the match. It was kind of a non-finisher. But just like Alfonso says, this isn't the end, Sandman. This is just the beginning. It's had a lot of story behind it, and I kind of enjoyed the match, so I'm going to give this a 6 out of 10. Going from an odd ending to an odd match, we have Tommy Dreamer and Beulah McGillicuddy taking on Rob Van Dam and Bill Alfonso. Tommy gets taken out of the match really early when Sabu interferes with the match. Then Rob and Sabu leave, pretty much allowing Bill Alfonso to take on Beulah by himself. What follows is a brutal match between Beulah and Fonzie. Oh, he gets busted open and he just bleeds everywhere. It's awful, and I enjoyed it very much. The ending is pretty much what you expect, but Beulah proves that she can go in the ring and definitely deserves the win. I'm giving this a 6 out of 10. Finally, we come to our main event. The Dudleys defend their ECW tag team titles against the combined effort of New Jack and John Kronos. I can see why they teamed up. Both men were without tag team partners, and both tag teams had a lot of history with the Dudleys, so it makes sense that if neither team could face the Dudleys, both men should team up and go against them. I didn't like this match. It didn't feel like a title match at all. I think this was the first time either man had teamed up with each other. It wasn't even a tag team match, it was just a brawl. It was a boring brawl with a whole bunch of weapons. I don't like the ending. I think it came way too soon and way too easily. About the only highlight was when Joel Gertner was on the mic. I love listening to him talk. He makes for a really great heel, and he really drew the ire of the crowd very well. One thing I don't understand is he mentions that there's no tag teams for the Dudleys to face, but just a month prior at Hardcore Heaven, the Dudleys were getting in the face of Shane Douglas, Chris Candido, and Bam Bam Bigelow. You'd think at this show, Bam Bam and Chris would team up to take on the Dudleys and give them that tag team that they needed. Instead, we get one half of the Gangstas and one half of the Eliminators. It just really didn't make sense to me. It was a short match, and it didn't feel like a title match whatsoever. I'm giving this a 4 out of 10. Overall, ECW's As Good As It Gets is a barely above average show. When both of the title matches earn a 4 and 5 out of 10, you know something's wrong with your card. If I had been the booker, I would have shuffled some of the wrestlers around to have made for some more interesting, engaging matches. Half of these matches don't even have any storylines going with them. Honestly, I think the booker, Paul Heyman, could have done a lot better with this card, and frankly, if this is as good as it gets, you can do better. I'm giving this a charitable 6 out of 10. Thank you for listening. Please tune in again to another Bastard Review when I review another wrestling DVD in my collection or anything else that crosses my path.